Right there.
You don't want to drink it, do you? Sure. It's fine still.
He's something a little bit higher up. Huh?
3/4 pound?
Just a little bit higher up. I don't know what pouchy vest we have.
What you need?
Vest.
What kind of thing? You need something like.
No. Let me see if this may work.
You want this? I'm gonna put this paper and turn it over this little. Here's a box.
Yeah, we need something like that.
If it needs to be higher, I can take this back, or you can even set it on.
I know what. Text messages.
Feed.
I'll turn off those ones on the vision. I can't just notifications off totally.
Okay, now this is showing it through your camera lens here.
Yeah. Correct. I'll just turn on.
I need my tool.
You doing that right now on the camera?
It's not on, is it?
What's going on right now?
Okay, well, I'm not doing it anymore.
I'm like, turn camera on. Okay.
Where's this like fresh caramel that I just made?
Should be airing over there. All right. We're live. And make sure we're live here too. Anybody that wants to get on a discussion? How do I turn it on there? Screen share. Oh, I know it's up there. I'm just gonna make sure I turn this on. Hi people, mute. Turn it off. Adjust settings. All right, so I guess today is the 31st of December 2017. This is our first YouTube live, and then be sharing it through the other social media outlets such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And today, today our theme is supposed to be about balance, your spiritual balance. And through your spiritual balance, you'll be able to find your center, you know. And so our agenda for leading into our, you know, hey, there's Daniel, guys. You'll hear a lot more about Daniel at some point during these sermons, and maybe he'll be able to join us one of these times. Monday, to kind of recap the sermon of the day, that day was about having Christmas and holidays and finding your own balance, you know, not just being sad and things of that nature, or looking at time once before, but really, you know, understanding, focusing into, you know, your blessings that you have, right? And then Tuesday, I went into finding your balance of being in the present, you know, holding on to that sin inside. And I don't want to jump into that, but you know how you hold on to sin inside there. And then Wednesday, we went into a spiritual balance, and that was basically taking the essence of God. You know, what does that all mean to you as well? And then from that, we went on to Thursday's discussion, which was where are you line between nobody and everybody? You know, where do you actually sit? And then Friday, the blessings of pain. You know, what does that actually mean to you? And then Saturday, just yesterday, we went to the I become my own reality. And then we open up to, you know, anybody else who wants to join the discussion. Make sure this is actually on. Just in case you guys are wondering, I don't know if you were able to join on air or not, but I think the screen is open, the chat is open. So if you want to join at any time. So, you know, I think one of the revelations that I had was thinking back to when I was a kid, and the first time I found out that what Christmas was about, you know, and for some people, you know, if your kids still are watching right now and you have things that you may not want them to know, then I would tell you to have them walk away. But one thing I'm not going to do is I don't want to lie to them. When I found out that Santa Claus wasn't real, it was like, wow, my mom went through this huge like ordeal about trying to keep it covered for us, to keep our innocence. But then something magical came out of that. Finding out that it wasn't real, that it was my parents working hard for stuff, and that you know, I guess I started taking things for granted before, and now I didn't. Extra hours and being away from us, and you know, we used to tell my mom and dad, we just wish you guys were around more. You know, it didn't matter what toys we had, but that they were around, and my parents did that. So every year after that, they told us, you know, basically in the spirit of it, if you work really hard, you do everything you say that you want to do, and you try to be the best person you can, at the end of that year, you ask based on what you think you merit as far as a gift. And we'll talk about it, and we'll see if you get it. And that's what my parents used to do. And it was like, I cherished each one of those gifts. Remember, we were having a conversation yesterday with Parker, right? And your parents. And interesting because you know, even your dad and your mom were talking about it. They were like, no, I remember getting like one gift or something like that. And then talking to Parker, and he's like, well, trying to just go through his memorabilia of so much stuff.
He was just trying to remember what his favorite gift was from a week ago.
Right.
Let me think about it. There's so many. You know?
Yeah, it's so funny. Versus like if you had only one gift that year, it's so easy to remember because you probably still have it. You know, and
then you get to think back of which Christmas was the best. It wasn't just that gift at that Christmas. It was memorable Christmases.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's, you know, when you start looking at that being the essence of what I learned from Christmas, then my Christmases became memorable each, you know, and you enjoyed them. You enjoyed it with the family. You got to play games and all this other good stuff. But then after getting married, you know, coming off of the typical Christmas with my family, which I really enjoyed. But then, you know, maybe there were some things I didn't like. But see, it was never a Christmas I didn't like with my family. You know, my mom and my dad, my two older brothers, my younger sisters. There was not one, except when my brothers left, and they both went off to the military. Well, actually, my oldest brother went off to the military. After that, Christmas was kind of like, it wasn't the same anymore. Not having everybody together anymore. And so I try to make that same adjustment even after joining the military, getting married, trying to make that bond where it's like, this is what Christmas should feel like. You know, that's when I took on the cooking, and you know, really wanted to try to replicate what my mom used to make, my dad, and really just be about family. But then I got caught up in the game of buying a lot of toys and showering my son with, you know, there's tons of gifts that he's never going to really like. I mean, he'd rather chew on a box. You know?
Yeah,
he was banging.
Paper.
He was literally banging his head on the floor. I mean, that was ZJ. It was just, and everybody knew him as that, you know. But you know, it's funny. My daughter used to climb in boxes, and she just loved them. Just loved just being in a box. That's it. And so you think about that. Those are the memories that come with those holidays, and eventually, you're trying so hard to manipulate the situation that you're basically you basically just manipulate the situation, you know, to your own benefit. And by doing that, you're you're trying to get somebody else to give you an emotion that you're hoping to replace from some time ago. I don't know what just happened. What just happened to this? All right. Did the TV turn off? Looks like it. No. No TV. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. That should be fine. What just happened? That was odd. Okay, I'm assuming we're still on air anyway. Let me just verify it.
Let's see.
Oh yeah, there we go. Just turned off. That turned off. I'm sorry about that, everybody. So. So I know that I get this thing not to turn off, and I'll plug this in. So keep it on. Verify right there. Okay.
Yeah, it's on. It's still
All right. Awesome. All right. So anyway, the balance between being happy and sad, during those types of holidays, you can always go back to a time, a reference point to a really great holiday. And then everything of that is like a replication of one of the past, because you're talking about an old tradition that may have happened. I think one of the things that I really liked, and this is like kind of a segue of how you transition out of being in the funk of, I used to being married, or I'm used to having my kids, and I'm an empty nester, and people don't love me. We even crossed the, with Bella, the dog.
Oh, Sonia.
Sonia. Okay, so Sonia talking about being away from family, and the good thing about it is that if she just concentrated, focused on like right now, like right at this moment, what's the blessing that she has in everything?
As her health, her faith, her grandchildren that she does have in her life, and
right.
So, and of course her little Bella.
And her sons, right?
Yeah.
So she has them.
And she's just missing one piece, and so it's like it's toward the whole.
That's
it's all crumbled down.
Right, and that's affecting her entirely, and that's what we're talking about. Spiritual health. Her health, yeah, exactly. So spiritually being broken in that way, it has you really, really, really kind of, so because we talk about ourselves in a physical sense, we talk ourselves in a spiritual sense, and then we talk about ourselves in a metaphysical sense, right? Something that extends outside of us. So inside, outside, and then something that's a higher power above us, right? That's supposed to constantly, make us function. So if a person learns during those times not to actually look at what they miss and focus, differently on what they're grateful for in that particular point in time. It sounds kind of hard, but let's just say you're with your grandma and you're enjoying it, like Parker. He's enjoying these times with his grandma. And so my impression that I want to have with him was one that, we were laughing, but he's getting a little joke. Remember from that guy, the Captain America looking guy that was really bald and with a goatee, right? Yeah. We're all joking about it. And then he saw a magic trick where I told him what it was, right? An easy one that he can walk away with. Just a little bit of knowledge. And then I told him how what inspired me to do what I did to walk across America. And it's funny, even like the wise tales are even told, through the eyes of people in his own community, about who I am, right?
Yeah.
Which is just so far
And that's just one person in one small town. I mean, think of all the people in all the towns, all the legends that have been created already, right?
I'm kind of like Johnny Appleseed or something right now. It's kind of funny, but it's one thing to get out when you got an opportunity. And I said this when I was walking across America. I said, you'll meet somebody, or you'll have an opportunity to meet somebody. Decide at that point, do you deviate off your path to just stop, pause for one moment, and meet somebody that may change your life for the rest of your life? Or will you be somebody that'll see it, wave at it, and just keep going? Or will you be somebody who gets out, has fellowship and talks, shares in that gospel with that person, shares in the pains and their stories and, and how they all relate? And if you do that, now you've stepped outside of your norm.
Yeah.
For the first time
ever. You don't stop for
ever,
strangers on the side of the road, right?
Right. For the first time ever, you wouldn't be insane, right? It was one of the things my son told me, and I was trying to tell Parker. I said, my son's the one that told me, you adults are all strangers, so that's just why you're a danger to each other. You know what we kids do? Hey, how you doing? I'm Aiden. You want to play with me? Oh, yep. His name's Matthew. Okay, great. I live over there. Oh, I live over here. They exchange information enough to say, we're cool, to play with each other. But at some point, they're taught, toughen up.
Don't talk to people you don't know.
Don't talk to people. Someone's going to steal something from you. All these other things that are bound to happen. It's okay. It's not that. It's this. It's just that. So all these other, things that are bound to happen that shouldn't. And, I have to say to myself, at some point, you have to let all that go. You can't let that define you. You can't hold on to a past memory when every single step of every single moment of every single breath you have, you're doing an imprint into your brain of something you did and something you should have been living in, which is in the current moment, not in the past. You're trying to recreate the past, and it'll never be the same. It'll never be the same. It's all carbon copies. So that's why, I started saying to myself, well, how do you make yourself happy then? Because you control your own happiness. You control your own sadness, right? So if you're missing, you're not having a good time right now, it's because you're not looking at the blessings that sit in front of you. Your friends, your family members are still here. Don't wait until, like my mom had to learn a hard lesson too. But she said it in the most wise way back to me after I told her, Mom, why do you cry? Your sister's in heaven. She has no more pain. God called her. She stopped crying to me and she said she's going to go golfing. She went golfing and had a great time. I don't go back in Korea during a bad time. I don't go when you're supposed to mourn. You're supposed to enjoy that time. It's in that culture, the Mongolian culture back then was, you may not see somebody. We didn't have the convenience of cell phones and all kinds of other stuff or video, right? We didn't have this. And so people will go out and pioneer out and colonize. And you may never hear anything back from them. Maybe once a year, right? So they come back and they used to make those Christmas letters and they send them out to everybody and tell them, hey, we made it all the way to, the Missouri line. Oh, yep, we lost little Johnny along the way. Yeah, he died of scarlet fever. Oh, we have his remains. I mean, that's what they've done. Just imagine, that's what we've done. I mean, it's what our ancestors have done. It's amazing, but that's how they did. And so they didn't get together during mourning times because you're going to have those. But during that course of time, what are all your accomplishments? And they focused on that aspect of it, to enjoy the moments as you're with the people, because that matters most. Because a lot of times, I think, the insane part about us, specifically here in, America, I want to say we're a first world country, but a third world personality. because we've lost sight of our own humanity. We believe that we're going to be here tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're full of first world problems.
Right. First world problems, which basically is a third world, which is you've lost.
We don't have problems
sight.
when you look at the big picture.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of problem do we have?
Yeah, you lost sight of all humanity. You're inhumane at this point. You've gone so far afield from being human, doing things that humans would naturally do, to being inhumane. And this is where I came down to the whole world peace thing. But I don't want to deviate too far off of that Monday's topic. It's about how to find balance within yourself, on a day where you think you're gonna be sad, because that sadness is a choice. And that's all I'm saying. It's your choice. It really is. You're gonna actually have tears of sadness, or you can have tears of joy. Look at your accomplishments. Look where you've grown. My gosh, think about when I was back in a time in the latter parts of my relationship, and I know that my ex probably felt the same way, where she felt like it's just not the same. And I just wish something was different about this person. I wish they would just be this way. And a part of you was just dying and dying every day there. But yet you were holding on to the fact you had time with this person, and you have a tradition that you're doing with that person. But it really is not genuine. It's like you're reluctant to even be there, right? And now when you're apart from each other, now you're going to go back and say, I'm sad. I don't like that part. I want to kill that part about me. And I'm like, why are you killing that? That wasn't that a great thing that you enjoyed when you played games and did stuff like that? Yeah, well then keep that. That's part of you. You enjoy that now with everybody. Let that be a part of you. Don't let that be the shameful spot.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look at how much growth you've had. Everybody's come into your life that's had some sort of impact, in your crossroads. So it's important that where you feel, which will be one of these topics in here, pain is your growth.
Mm-hmm.
You got to use it as your growth.
And each of those experiences make up who we are today. I mean, that would be just, taking part of who we are away from ourselves.
Absolutely. So, you have anything else you want to add to that one? I know I totally murdered that one. Don't think I beat the dead horse.
Okay. No, you're good.
All right. So Tuesday, we're talking about finding balance of present, of actually being in the present and holding sin inside. So I'm going to flip this before it decides to conk out on us again. Still going. Good. So one of the things that, my brother Ron, he actually had chimed in and he said, even having ill thoughts is unclean. Unclean thoughts. Mm-hmm. That's you holding that sin within, right? So for somebody to say like, oh, he said the N-word or something like that, it's like, well, you're holding that in. Just because you said something different on the outside doesn't mean that you, right? It's to even think even a dirty thought. It's to do anything that you would consider to be shameful. Mm-hmm. It's a shameful thought. This is why you don't even want to say it out loud. And we hide that in, that shame. I started realizing is one of the things, during the walk is to say the sin that you think, but then also say to yourself why you don't do that sin anymore, because you've done it before. And so one in particular, it was a very valuable lesson. I forgot exactly where. It may have been in the beginning of maybe Texas or Oklahoma area, and there was this red pickup truck that passed me 3 times, and it was significant. The number 3 of people passing me. Passed me, I waved, and he was kind of reluctant to wave, and then he starts driving slowly, turns around, and he drives back the other direction. He sees me, and I wave. And he waves and he drives around slow. That's it. I was staying at the motel, like next day. I leave early in the morning. I take off as I'm going around in the afternoon. I'm walking, and the next thing you know, the truck comes up, and he cuts out in front of me, and he pulls over, and he points and says, "Hey, go over there." So I pull into this like little shopping center where he's at, and I pointed out that day like the kind of numerology things that were happening, which is there's going to be a good or bad choice that's going to take place. You know, if I saw successions of 9s or 6s, that it was all 6s, and if there were more 6s than there were 1s, 1s being 11, 11, 11, 11s were a good sign, which means I was probably going to make a good choice. If it was more 6s, then I was energized to potentially make a bad choice. If I had both equal balance, then it really was up to me. But it's already predetermined how to actually defeat this. And even in the verse of the day, it told me this would happen. It said something was going to challenge me this way. The guy took me over and he asked me why I was walking across America, and I told him, typically what I would say to everybody. And his response was, "You ever get horny out there?" And I look at him, and I'm like, that's the first time I heard that question. He's like, "Well, do you?"
Was it the only time you heard that question?
Only time I heard it. And he said, "No, but do you? Do you get horny out there?" And it startled me for a second, but I said, you know what? I'm not going to not answer that. I'm going to answer because you need to know. I said, "Here's the thing, sir. I have desires. And yes, it does happen that you may want that. But what I have to say to myself every day since I started walking is that I'm walking away from sins. And what I will tell you is, I live my day and say, I will live every day on earth as I would in heaven. I don't get horny out there." And then I said, "Would you mind coming out and sign my flag?" He's like, "No, it's okay." And took off. And it was one of those things where it shocked me. Red truck. I turned and look over my shoulder. I was like, that was just odd. And I look, and I even started videotaping, and I did a live like video on Facebook. I said it was odd, and then look over. There are the successions of 1s where everybody can see it, and the successions of 6s and 9s where you can see that I was destined to make the right decision. And the significance of this person coming back on a third time to see me, in passing, that was it's fine. We'll just leave it like that. And then I'll just look up to the box every once in a while. So that was to me, that was very interesting in all of it.
It's delayed.
Okay, good. All right, it is delayed. Perfect. Yeah. A sensor said. So it's genuine. See, no one's paying for this. This is absolute good airtime. There's no cutting it up. It's actually talking and being genuine and honest, and that's what it's all about. So anyway, it was just good to be challenged by your spirituality and know what's gonna, what gets you out of a bad situation from even having an ill thought. As you have an ill thought, you have to be able to say it's there and then find a way to denounce it. Like, you have to be able to just step away from it. I think it's very important that people learn that, you learn to identify when you're having an issue and then how to walk away from it, even within yourself. Like, I tell people to try to do mirror practice. Before you say something to someone, before you even go and make an accusation, before you even do anything remotely like that, you should really just go in the mirror, sit in front of the mirror, and then say what you want to say to yourself in the mirror. And if you don't like the way you seem, when you look at yourself in the mirror, then you'll realize, wow, that's probably not how I don't want to be talked to like that. I don't want to look like I'm being judged. it's like one of those nightmare things, like being in a room full of mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like scary. It's like, and they're laughing at you, and you're like, why are you laughing? They're like, why are you laughing? And all repeating. That would freak you out, right? Imagine that's what it feels like if you just only saw your own reflection. So then that's why I say to you, treat that person kindly in the mirror, which everyone is just a reflection.
Mm-hmm.
If you treat them kindly, then it doesn't matter if they don't try to treat you kindly back. You have to see why they may not. Because you could be in their shoes. It's two people in the same instance. It's the same dollar bill that's being cashed, the same coin.
And it usually doesn't have anything to do with that person. Yeah. It's their self.
Exactly. That's what we were talking about with your dad. I said, no, I'm not here to have everybody love me. It's not my purpose. It's not my purpose to have that. I said, because the problem is somebody can't love me. They can't even love themselves anyway. So they can't love you because they can't even love themselves. You know, and you can't really hate me. Why? Because you don't even really hate yourself. You're completely lost. You don't have a definition of who you are. You say you're balanced, but you're really lost. You know, it's how, and that's why we're talking about finding yourself and finding your balance. So hiding that sin, you know, I say sometimes you just gotta let it out. Mm-hmm. You know, people were talking about being PC, and I'm like, you know what? I think sometimes it's funny how we'll say it's okay for comedians to go up and have a license to say something very derogatory, right?
Say something that you or I couldn't say.
And they're saying, "Oh, it's totally okay." You know, it's because they're comedians. It's like, no, other people would say in a joke. It's a joke, you know. And talking about check boxes. Mm-hmm. Each time you check a box, you're putting yourself, you're labeling yourself into a box. Anyway, don't want to jump into another topic. Stay on topic here. Let's see. So, you have anything you want to add to that one?
Are we on Wednesday?
Yeah, we're going on Wednesday now.
No, we're good.
All right. So Wednesday.
Why don't you introduce that part?
Okay. Yeah. So Wednesday is spiritual balance. You know, taking in the essence of God. So one of the things that, you know, I find interesting is that people will ask God for, you know, for help all the time. You know, they'll ask God to hold on, let me get this going correctly too. All right. So they'll ask God to fix their problems and woes. If this person has cancer and you know, whatever it may be, and God, please fix all my problems. It's interesting that that's the approach that a lot of people will take, and I don't see how that's something that you want to be able to do all the time. Is ask God to only fix where you believe it's a problem, not look at it as potentially a blessing, right? Take, for instance, everyday life, everything you do in life today. People would say, I got a promotion. You'd say, oh, thank you, God, for a promotion. It's like, wait, time out. Did God really give you a promotion? And you're saying, yeah, he did. Okay, great. But God loves you, right? I mean, we're told God loves us. Okay, so God loved Adam. It's a correct statement, true. Mm-hmm. That's what it says in the Bible.
Yes.
But then God away because Adam ate the apple, right? Mm-hmm. And Adam learned what shame was. And ever since Adam learned what shame was, he had to leave. But God loves Adam. Now, if Adam loves God enough, Adam will find his way back to God, right? Isn't that what love's supposed to do? Well, when we're all made of Adam, why have we not found our way back to God? And so I asked this, the essence of God for everything. So We're all going to die, right? It's a true given statement. We're all going to die. But upon dying, I asked this one and only question. You have cancer, you know that you're going to die. You know that it's your time. And you have maybe a year to live. What do you do differently?
Hopefully you wouldn't have to do anything differently. I would hope that you would, have the best year of your life, but you should be doing that every day anyway. I mean, you shouldn't have to do anything differently. Whether it's a year from now because of cancer or 20 years from now because you get hit by a train. It's like you're still going to die. We all know we're going to die. But we should still live our life the same no matter what.
See, I say, you gotta ask yourself, is it a blessing? Because there's some people who are there. They would fight. They would fight to stay alive. Versus honoring the fact that it's a calling that you maybe be called to from God. Mm-hmm. There are worse ways to die. Let's put it that way. They say it's 100,001 ways to die. Choose one, whatever. Well, if I knew that my time was up, I would. I was continuing to let everybody talk about it. Take, for instance, the Gay Parade, Gary Turner. Mm-hmm. He started that a long time ago. And he had his family kind of defect away from him. His kids didn't want to be around him. He sold everything he had and bought this little place on Route 66 and resurrected the whole gas war thing they had going on there. And he used to tell great stories. And people all around the world know this guy. But people here in America don't have any idea who this guy is in their backyard. But all around the world, people know who he is. I mean, famous. This guy is famous. I mean, they come here just to meet Gary. He's a star. Mm-hmm. And and just after he left, he departed. His spirit stayed here because his daughter misses him. The foolish. She was ashamed at a picture that she thought her too old. She's like, oh, that's when he's old and sick. And I said, no, he's not old and sick. He's absolutely beautiful. Because you know why? People see him as Gary Turner, as this lovable man who cared so much about everybody who came through, who started giving people watermelon and ice cream, and they come to his place whether they bought anything or not. And he would tell them stories and stuff like that about the whole place. And it was just a phenomenal person. He always helped people out. And his daughter thought that he was just this old sickly guy. And that was far from the truth. Then the next day, after I had a conversation with Gary, this is where some people go, what do you mean by that? We'll talk about that in my book. But I had a conversation with Gary, and Gary said the next day that he will reveal himself to myself and to his daughter, Barb. And so we're sitting in there, and Barb's showing me the picture of what Gary really looked like in a photo inside his little shop. And so we're looking at this picture, and he's looking, he's younger. He has a face is a little fuller and tighter. And then this Japanese tourist guy comes in, and she's telling me the story about her dad. And he looks up and he says, "Oh, your dad? Yeah, really nice guy. I know him." His phone. So, great. So we're looking at the picture, and she's describing about how sad it is and that he looks and stuff like that. And the guy says, "Oh, here." Shows his phone and says, "There's your father right there. It's me and him. Yeah, I've been coming here for the past 3 years. I always bring everybody to stop and I talk about your father. Your father, I love him. He's a good guy. Really nice guy." And Gary was looking at this guy, looking at us like this, just like this, smiling at Barb and I. And I said, "Well, there you go. I told her right before that even happened. She asked me, so what did you feel like was happening on that property? I said, well, your dad told me that he's going to show himself to us both like today. Says he's planning to. I don't know how the heck that's going to happen, but yeah, we'll both see him at the same time today. We did. Guy posts a picture, shows us. And Barb just, it brought tears to her eyes. I'm like, wow, I can't believe that actually happened. So anyway, that's when you take in the spiritual essence of God, you allow God to work through you. You know, even the Gabe Parida, again, there's a guy named George of the Jungle is what he calls himself. And you look at him at face value and you would think there's no way this guy is fluent Nihongo, Japanese, but not just regular Japanese, not business Japanese you learn in college and everything else, but this is like you live in the streets of Japan. You can kind of talk to the homeboy language type of thing. And it's, and so Gary was talking with these guys like this. I mean, he's pretty, you know, dignified, you know, Japanese businessmen that were here riding Harleys. You know, a Harley biker gang of Japanese guys is the most awesome thing to see, right? Any biker gang, you know, and there's tons of them. And he was talking Nihongo to him, and he's just have the craziest outfit. But he used to serve in the military too, and he had a lot of bad things were happening with PTSD. But when he came to the Gabe Parida, he became Gary, the legacy, and people now go to see George of the Jungle because of his stories. Because he stuck in and he talks about Gary.
He's kept it alive and
he's exactly he's added his tidbit to that story, that lineage, about this awesome place called the Gabe Parida that started with and as a gas war of like 3 different gas stations on like corners when cars only went like 8 to 10 miles a gallon. And, you know, the 50 miles apart, that's next gas stations. They were really close. And then now we have them really far apart because you're getting like 300 miles a gallon, 200 miles a gallon. So you can put them further apart. So imagine that's what it was like. And so they were like, you know, 13 cents a gallon. Well, 14 cents a gallon. Well, you know, they were doing that. And they all had tire services because the tires are always blowing out too at the time. So he got the one that won. Like beat them all out. And so that was the one that they held until the Route 66 had the bypass come in and, you know, went right past them. And yeah, so that's sort of like the story of even like Cars on Disney. So same thing. So it's, you know, it's kind of heartfelt when you learn about it.
Yeah.
But then you realize, wow, that's what we came from that. Our ancestors all did that, right? So it's an amazing thing. And that lives within the spirit and the words of everybody you're with, you know that. And I said it yesterday to your dad. I said, you know, some of the best books are never written; they just died. You know, and so learning and reaching out and connecting to everybody, coming to them with the softer tone in which you want to speak to them. Learn what they have to say because there's a lesson in every single thing that you do. There's a lesson. If you don't learn a new lesson every day, you clearly have your mind shut off. I mean, you're on autopilot to death. That's it. I mean, yep, that's what's at the end, death. Okay, so shut your mind off and you know you're going there. No big deal. You have anything you want to add to that?
Well, just like what you just said, it's just a pattern of growth that you have to get into and stay in that rhythm of growth. And, you know, it's like the thing I go back to a lot. It's like just the height of your vibration. Like you're at a certain level, you want to continue for that to increase every day of your life. And if you're not, then what are you doing?
All right. So going into our Thursday discussion was, where are you on the lifeline between nobody and everybody? Now I say this, you know, I was trying to get you to understand. When you say nobody's perfect, nobody does not exist, which means then therefore there's perfection, right? If nobody exists. But then you have everybody, and everybody is everybody. And everybody can't represent somebody because there's a bunch of different somebodies in everybody, right? So then you have to be somebody. And somebody sits between nobody and everybody. And the beauty about it is it can be anybody. It comes from both nobody and everybody. And that becomes somebody. And that kind of completes kind of your pyramid of how you actually start uniting yourself completely. You realize I have to step out of my comfort zone, my norm. Going back to Parker's story is of something that may or may not be. Right? It's funny, and I laugh about it because here I am with you, and you guys pass me, and I know everything about your kids. We learn, we talk, we conversated. We were able to share a lot of Bible, biblical scriptures, spirituality and thinking. We formed a good friendship, along the way, and here we are today. So it's pretty awesome. And then now we're starting to do this and reach out to as many people possible. And hopefully, get them into the mindset of bringing God to the center of their universe. They'll start to feel their spiritual awakening too, and have an opportunity where they'll feel they'll be saved, right? Mm-hmm. So that was what I'm looking at is. You're all those things. You are nobody, so you are perfect. You are everybody, which means you're imperfect. You're also somebody, which gives you your own self-identification. And the beauty of it is any task, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, can be anybody, which means you're part of that too. So now that's your choice. Good, bad, or indifferent. That's your choice. You're making that conscious choice in everything that happens in your life. Every single moment is an imprint into your mind space of what and who you are and what you're going to be. Your imprint. So if you're really going to start letting go of certain things, letting go of the evil parts of your own humanity, you need to just get them out there and then dissolve them as they get out. You're able to do that. You're able to go back to where you first was on that. I talked about it. Everybody's a trunk. You come from a seed, boom, you sprout out. This is the trunk, and you have branches. But see, at some point, you deviated off your main trunk line, and you allow one branch of you to be all of you. And it's not balanced because it's not where your foundation started. You got to figure out where did I branch off incorrectly. I wasn't supposed to branch. I was supposed to stay on my trunk. And I was supposed to make everything in my trunk solid, and make it strong. And branches only go off when I need to get rid of bad stuff. This branch goes off for bad, but I keep everything good on my trunk. And I grow my trunk bigger, right, and stronger and longer, and it stays alive longer. But instead, we like to deviate off these little branches, and because we stay on those branches, it's like that's who we are. Like a job, that becomes you. Mm-hmm. A marriage or a boyfriend or girlfriend, that becomes you. Kids, a goal, anything that is a title becomes you. I'm black. I'm this. Any checkbox of your life, if that's what becomes you, then you then become that branch, unfortunately. And that's so far from the trunk of where you need to be. So that's why if you can find your somebody that is supposed to be anybody, and you choose to be perfect like nobody, perfect except for whom? Who is the most perfect being that ever has existed in our entire life? Supposedly. God. So then you have to be like nobody else would ever be. Choose the perfect path. And that's where that sermon comes in. Mm-hmm. And it is now choice, because we all know choice. You have anything you want to add to that spiritually?
heard that one. You're just
You want to roll?
you are. Just keep it up.
All right.
We're into the blessing of pain.
So the blessing of pain. You think about it. Pain is a blessing because if you didn't know there was pain, you could die. Right? Take for instance, you put your hand in a fire, you burn it one time. If you didn't feel pain, you'd die. Right? But the reality is you don't have to die because you're like, ooh, ow. I know it. Learn it first time.
One of the first things you learn as a baby. Don't touch, it's hot. Right?
Observations. Enough observations to know don't do that. But sometimes some pain is not as it's not as apparent as others. You know, I love to go back to the whole pooping thing, right?
Yes.
So you naturally know how to poop. Everybody does, right? You know how to do it. That's great. But then they put a diaper on you. Then you poop and you're like, oh, I don't like to get the poop on. Now I got a rash and it's stuck to my butt and I hate it, right? So you start learning, I don't want that either. And so they try to teach you, well, then you can actually go poop. But if you play by our rules, poop in this little thing over here. Because before it was an outbox, you know, outhouse. And now it's, you know, toilets that run through a septic system and everything else, right? So then you learn that rule. You finally play by the rules. But then some people still to this day don't realize that everything in your life is associated with your own crap. You know, figuratively speaking, you create your own crap and you decide how you wanted to deal with your own crap. You know, are you actually putting it in a system and flushing it down like everybody else is? Or are you actually wearing it all the time? Or are you just not potty trained? Because you love to crap on everything and crap on everyone, right? So it's important that you learn through pain that there's a lesson from it. There's no lessons. You don't grow.
No, you get stagnant.
You know, why does Mother Nature cause a forest fire?
For regrowth, for new to turn, come out.
Yep.
Just to refresh the
It
world.
refreshes its soil with the ashes fly off somewhere else, help them, you know, spread. And then with the rain, those ashes then now give back new life. It's the circle of life. So sometimes for us, if you don't look at your painful moment as a blessing and say, if I didn't have this broken heart then, if I didn't learn not to cheat, if I didn't learn to cheat and how it affects somebody else, if I didn't learn what it's like to be stolen from or what it feels like to steal, if I don't know right from wrong, and I don't see that there's pain on both sides because it's the same coin, right? Then I need to identify and says, I know the lesson. The lesson is it's the same coin. And both are going to coexist as long as I make that something that is a reality, right? Which is going to be a segue that goes into our last conversation, right? Which is, when did my lie become my reality? Right? So that was big. You know, it was pivotal yesterday to see that and look at the verse of the day and then look at, you know, Parker, and as we talked about it. And as I was explaining to everybody yesterday that, you know, Parker being 11 years old, and after I asked him about, you know, what he received from Santa Claus, and he looked around at everybody else because he didn't want to be disrespectful to, you know, an adult. And he didn't know really like whether or not he should play along with me to say, well, Santa Claus isn't real. So he looked around and was like, well, what do you mean? You know, that sort of thing. And I'm like, well, obviously you don't want to lie. I can tell because the way you're looking around, just body language just gives it away. You're one of those kids. You just don't want to lie. So you don't believe in Santa Claus. And he was like, no, we're not. It doesn't happen in our house. And so that was good that we got to be on the same common ground. And then eventually, I asked him, so when did that become a reality? What is your reality? And I had to tell him my experience with, like I told you about my family in the very beginning, about full circle of learning from my mom and then finding out later on that we earned our gifts based on good merits. So my reality always came that you are the creator of your own existence. Just like racism or anything else, it is you and you only that either makes it exist or it doesn't exist. But that's on you. And I think that, in some instances, there are people who don't really necessarily agree with that or don't understand that when that's being said. Or for instance, we had discussed this, racism, for instance. And say something derogatory or to even acknowledge, like, I'm not racist. You are considered a racist because you're still playing the racist game because you acknowledge racism. Therefore, you would be a racist. You're an anti-racist, which still makes you a racist. See, a racist and an anti-racist are still racist.
They're all recognizing and acknowledging race.
Exactly. You guys all agree there's races. See? So you're all racist. See how that works? So if you don't want to be a racist, stop acknowledging race. It just be done. Abolish it. It's done. There's no such thing as race, guys. Let it go. Sexes, same thing. If you want to believe that there are sexes, that your physical determines what you are spiritually inside or what you are, period. Sexual preferences, your sexual play is that should have it had no impact on your identification of who you are on your exterior, and so that too is something that you have to say to yourself, do I agree that's my reality, or do I know that that's not? It's just someone's way of checking a box to put you in a box and identify and tell you this is who you are, so that everybody else will know we agree who you are. It's like, no, why don't I just ask Mindy, well, who are you? What is your purpose? I understand we have things that look like you have a head, I have a head, you have nose, great, perfect. But who are we? Animals do that because they all figure out what their kind of purpose is and where they get along. Nature
and how
does
they
that.
fit in with each other.
Yes, it's a nature, it's a natural thing. But for us, we have to program ourselves and try to teach each other. But we don't just teach, we try to enslave somebody to only think in a certain manner. And to me that's when your reality gets skewed away. It's like, if you can walk, who taught you how to walk? Right? I always ask that. I ask people, who taught you how to walk? One day I stood up and just started walking. I started looking at people and then noticed they were walking. I said, I want to walk too. So I got up and started walking. Did you talk? Did you understand it? No, not really. I didn't know my right from left. I had no idea. That's literally it. They have no idea. Kids, babies have no idea. So all you grown-ups and everybody else out there today, we are not smarter than babies. Babies learn something brand spanking new that they can do. Like literally, we've been doing this for a long time. Figured it out. When are we going to figure out something that surpasses where they're at to teach them something new? Because we're screwing a lot of stuff up, and we're repeating it traditionally because we're just saying we want to make it great again. I think making it great again, you take the scaffolding of what that means. Everything about you that spells out the love of your own humanity. If you want world peace again, then you starts with you. You got to be the peaceful one. And that includes your family. It includes everyone who's around you. It doesn't matter who they are. You show that. You know, if you don't want people to starve, you want to end world hunger, great. You see somebody starving, feed them. You know, solution, you are somebody. Because you could be anybody who is starving. Because nobody's perfect. And now you're acting like nobody does. Because everybody else is standing over here watching you. You're the closest thing to what nobody does, which is help the humanity, you know? So your reality is what you choose it to be, guys. I tell you that, and I tell you that with the utmost sincerity. You can look at your life and you can look at everything that you think is positive, and you can reflect on it and find where there's a negative to everything that is positive. Both are going to coexist. I can't tell you one is better than the other. But what I can tell you is that you'll have a feeling, because you'll never have to justify it. The outcome of what is inside you has to be within you. No validation from anyone else. None whatsoever. I would much rather say we have a greedy world where you only work and get only what is yours, just yours, that's it. It can't be bequeathed to anyone else. It's done. So guess what? No one inherits anything. It gets refactored out everywhere else. It's every man for himself. See, imagine that world. That world basically resets itself. You know, Warren Buffett dies, boom, everything goes back out. It's like that. But you got people who are so lazy to evolve because they're thinking, well, somebody else needs to give it to me. I'm entitled. You know, we were laughing about the Encyclopedia Britannicas and going to the getting microfiche in the library, and everybody walking 5 miles in the snow to school, and it's so easy, right?
Yes.
And that's what we were trying to say. But realistically, they do and they don't.
Because we also said none of us wanted to be that 11-year-old again either.
Exactly. You know, you have so much information, you have so much at your hands, you have so much technology. You have an ability to change and make this world a better place. You have the ability to reach out and have zero boundaries. You don't even have a communication, issue anymore with people from other countries to know the real truth of things that are happening there. You don't have the walls that we put up based on the media that sits out today. You know, you have social media, you have media channels like this. You can go look up and research them. There are people who do things for money, and there are people who just do things because they want to do stuff to help people. You know, and you have to look out and say to yourself, where do I sit between those somebodies? Because I can be like everybody, or I can do what nobody else will do. That's somebody, and help change the world. So, in your balance, that's what it's all about. I hope you guys had a good time. I know I had a good time talking about it. I can talk forever and ever about this stuff. Mindy, do you have anything you want to add to that about the reality of things? Because I know you had some revelations yourself this week where we were looking at the reality of something still being a lie on the other side, and then the lie of something being a reality of the other side. And it's like, it's gripping, because you're really, when you look at it, you're like really dealing with it on a daily. It's like, man, how do you go about living that? Part of you has to live a lie, part of you has to live reality, and vice versa. It's one of those things where it's a catch-22, right?
Exactly what it is. It's catch-22. So where do you go from there, right?
I'm guessing that kind of leads to what Ron said too about, can you actually live on earth as you would in heaven?
We have talked a lot about that, and went back to, you can live as heavenly as possible while on earth. and make that attempt,
Yeah.
which is actually part of this balancing. Like if you can balance yourself enough to be heavenly on earth, then you're balanced. It's part of balance.
Right. You're right. So to add to that, what I always was started saying now, because the words just would come to me, is before, if I was to live on earth as I would in heaven, then I would have to try to practice and do that on all 7 days. Problem with that is saying that there's, because I'm counting. Why am I counting when I know death is already there? So who cares?
It's still just present.
Everything's a present. So now I have to live as heavenly here on earth to earn my next rebirth, which is supposed to be heaven. It's supposed to be paradise. And so with that, I think let's go ahead and end, because I want next week to be about, you and I were talking about, which is the Garden of Eden.
Also really good.
Okay. So the Garden of Eden, guys, Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden. They were cast out of the Garden of Eden, right? And then it was locked. Of heaven. But Adam and Eve didn't live in heaven. They lived in the Garden of Eden. But Eden is not within heaven. So what is heaven? Why is heaven different from the Garden of Eden? And how do you get there? And have you ever been there before? I think these are all good, good things that I want to look at. And so what I'm looking to do is potentially reach out to ministers and different ministries around to ask that same question, because they should have a very biblical description to tell me we're Eden and we're heaven, and how they're either the same, and why does it translate to paradise? What does that mean? And how do you describe it to us? Because I really want to know, and maybe I can find a mosque or something else to ask them the same thing, like an opinion, because that's what we want to start doing on this channel now, is reaching out, getting a lot of guests to come on here and be able to give us their ideas and opinions and stuff like that too. So with that, guys, God bless you. Have a fantastic rest of your year, and we'll see you in 2018.